People say it's just a reflection of society. Well, we're part of society, aren't we? And I'm choosing to not just be okay with the status quo. I want to do something to make society better. And if that's me doing my part, then I'm going to do it.
What happens when two old friends get together and chat about their experience of how nursing and healthcare have evolved since the days when blogging, podcasting, and social media were novel territory for nurses? And where do we go from here? Let's talk all about it with Dr. Renee Thompson, the CEO and founder of the Healthy Workforce Institute, right here on episode 532 of The Nurse Keith Show. Hey there, this is Nurse Keith. This podcast is about you. It's about your personal and professional development, your career, and the healthcare system and the nursing profession writ large. And I'm here to share education, ideas, and informative interviews like today's with some of the most inspiring people from the worlds of healthcare, nursing, entrepreneurship, and beyond. You know, I've always loved having you along for this podcasting ride, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for always tuning in. Or if you're here for the first time, that's also awesome. And you may have been listening since we started broadcasting episodes back in January of 2015. So no matter how you've ended up here, I appreciate it more than I can possibly say. And I just want to say this is a really significant moment for me and the show as I begin the process of choosing to step away from the microphone for an as yet undetermined period of time. I've conducted, I think, hundreds of interviews with healthcare leaders, movers, shakers, and other standout human beings. And at least for the moment, I think I've tapped out what I need to say, and I've accomplished what I set out to, or maybe even more than I set out to. And I may be back for some limited series focused on certain topics, but that hasn't been determined yet. And if I'm honest, I'm now working full-time as a nurse again. Most of you know what that's like. And we're just going to see where things land in 2026. So to that end, this is the last interview style episode to be recorded for the foreseeable future. And I could see no one else who I wanted to do that with, but my dear friend, Dr. Renee Thompson. This has been a labor of love for me. Dr. Thompson has been on the show a number of times. She was even on RNFM radio, that groundbreaking podcast, one of the first nursing podcasts in existence that launched back in 2012. Renee and I have been orbiting in similar orbits for a long time, and we've been dear friends. And even as the Nurse Keith Show nears the end of this good long run, I felt like Dr. Renee was the person to have here with me. And, you know, as the singer Michelle Schacht once said, the secret to a long life is knowing when it's time to go. So, you know, sometimes you know it's time. So at any rate, as I said, we're here with my dear friend, the inimitable and amazing Dr. Renee Thompson. She's the CEO and founder of the Healthy Workforce Institute. And Renee, you and I have known and liked and loved and admired and respected each other for so long. And I always wanted to kick it off by asking you, when and where do you recall you and I first running across each other in the nursing zeitgeist universe? Where did we find each other?
Yeah, great question. I actually remember it vividly. So when I started my company, I was told you have to get on social media. And I thought, what? Really? Social media? So I did. I became a blogger. I signed up, for a professional business page on Facebook, did LinkedIn, and I got on at the time, it was Twitter.
Yep.
And, being on social media, you just start paying attention to other nurses who were out there doing things on social media. And I found you, Keith, on Twitter, and I found your blog. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's another nurse who actually has a blog and is also on Twitter. And I remember connecting with you, I think, especially on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And it was you and it was Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Ross.
Kevin Ross. And we would have these conversations back and forth in Twitter. And then we first had an opportunity to meet each other in person at the NNBA conference. And that's the National Nurses in Business Association, where we were involved for numerous years.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we met each other in person. However, we had quote unquote known each other for at least a year in the virtual space. And you did a session at NNBA on podcasting. So I never even considered doing a podcast. I didn't even know nurses did podcasts. And there you were. So when I think about, uncharted territory, moving, taking a risk, getting yourself out there, I always think of you because you were the first nurse I ever knew who started a blog and the first nurse I ever knew who started a podcast. And Keith, you're like the original, like OP, like original podcaster, not OP, but OP. And, numerous, you inspired me because I now have a podcast and I don't have 500 plus episodes. I think we're at 115 right now.
Very respectable.
Well, thank you very much. It's more than, two, which I'm very happy about. But you really paved the way for other nurses like me to get themselves out there, get their message out there. And you've done such a great job doing that. And one of the things that I love about meeting other people in a variety of different ways, like we did, is that I become friends with them and I care about them and love them. And as you said, you and I have known each other now for I don't know how many years, a very long time, and have grown to love you as a brother and, respect you and the work that you've done all these years. So, but yeah, that's how we met. It was your blog and what you were posting on Twitter.
Thank you. Yeah, those were the days. And yeah, my blog, I think, was like the second or third nursing blog that I think even existed. And RNFM radio, we had no idea what we were doing when we started that podcast. But at that time, we actually did live shows. They were actually, people could actually call in. It was it was just a different world. And that was like the second nursing podcast, I think, that ever and became a thing on the internet. And yeah, it was an unusual time. And I feel like it was sort of a naive and innocent time in a way. But do you remember, like, what did we talk about back then? Like, what were we all concerned about? Was it the same as now, or do you feel like, was it different? What we talked about in 2011, 2012, 2013? What were nurses like worried about?
Well, some of the same worries that we had back then. And I don't know, Keith, many of us use the pandemic 2020 as the before and
Mm-hmm.
after. That has become the divider, before and after. A lot of it was pay. It was we're not getting the respect that we deserve.
Yeah.
It is and for me, it was how people were treating each other. That's always been there. Heck, that's been there for, a century. And that's, why I started the work that I do, is because I just had enough watching nurses just be really cruel to each other. So there were similar issues, staffing issues, this disconnect between the nurses at the bedside and the leaders. So it's always been there. There have been some shifts since the pandemic on what we're, focusing on, because we never talked about well-being. We never talked about setting boundaries, pre-pandemic like we do now. It was there because I remember in NNBA, there were some aspiring nurse entrepreneurs who wanted to start like wellness and coaching businesses. And
Mm-hmm.
we're like, that's hard to make money off of. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just want advice for free, especially when it comes to wellness. Now, oh my gosh, that's all you see are articles and podcasts and conversations about preserving your well-being and, obviously taking care of yourself is critically important, but it always was. We just weren't
Mm-hmm.
talking about it like we were before, just like bullying and incivility. Pre-pandemic, I was actually told by some of my clients, don't use the word bullying in your presentation. Can you change the title so it doesn't have the word bullying? I was at the time thinking, what is wrong with you people? You have to call it what it is. You have to name it.
Mm-hmm.
And now, oh, we talk about bullying and incivility all the time and use those terms. So I think some of
Yeah.
the terminology, some of the focus, but some of the same issues existed back then as they do now.
Yeah. And I think that is part of, if I'm really honest, like if I'm just really honest about where I'm at, that's part of where my kind of fatigue comes from, is that we've been having these same conversations for so many years. And there are places we've made gains, we've made strides. Nurses are much more forthright. People are talking out loud about a lot of the stuff that used to not get talked about. But I think that's where a lot of us can start to feel a little bit of fatigue. And we've heard the term compassion fatigue, of course, but I feel like there's just fatigue from this ongoing conversation. And you mentioned the pandemic, and I know there's a certain level at which people just don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Right.
But it was a watershed moment in many ways, right? And you the whole notion of how the pandemic was sort of this love fest in a way, like people were banging pots of pans for nurses and doctors and healthcare workers at 3 p.m. and like people perceived when change of shift was, and they'd be outside their houses banging on pots and pans, which I thought was really sweet. It was very well intentioned. And then all these hospitals, including our local hospital here in Santa Fe, had a big banner outside, heroes work here and all that stuff, and like I would cringe when I would see that somewhat, because I was like, well, you know, okay, those are great words, but what does that actually mean? Um, so during the pandemic, when we were having all these conversations and we were seeing, just how hard people worked and what the struggles were. And I had this innocent, talk about naivete. Like I had this innocent hope that like, oh, all this well-meaning nomenclature and all the like talking about taking care of everyone and all this sort of the whole zeitgeist, kind of like the shift that felt like it was happening. I thought, oh, as the pandemic settles down and we get back to some semblance of normalcy, maybe some of that's going to stick, right? And what I perceive myself, and you're deeper into it than I am, is that we're kind of back to business as usual. And it's back to like huge CEO salaries and, nurses having those same struggles. So do you feel like we've squandered collectively some of that like juice that we kind of garnered during the pandemic, of feeling like, oh, there's things could change, we could do this differently? Have we did we lose that opportunity?
Well, if I'm being very transparent, how I really feel
Yeah.
about this, I think we have. I think we had an
Hmm.
opportunity and we missed it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to hear, not funny, but to hear you say things like, the hero banner. Keith, it was my favorite keynote presentation that really celebrated nursing because, all of my work is about badness, bullying, incivility, people just being mean to each other. And I love speaking. I'm a big keynote speaker. And if an organization wants to bring me in for Nurses Week, I'm not going to talk about bullying during Nurses Week. I needed to have something that reminds nurses of why they chose nursing in the first place. So I created this whole presentation and title, and we have some things related to this as sort of products, but celebrate nursing, human by birth, hero by choice. Everybody loved it until the pandemic. Because you're right, the communities, applauded nurses, gave them food. There was nothing a nurse could do wrong during that period of time. And then it was all of a sudden, it felt like everybody abandoned nurses. And, as you said, it was almost back to status quo. Nurses got to the point that they got resentful and hated the word hero. And so I actually stopped giving that keynote. I took it off because it was too raw. It brought up too many of those raw emotions of almost like a bait and switch. Yes, we love our nurses. And then all of a sudden, when we didn't see the struggles and, running into the burning building while everyone else is running out, then we're like, okay, go back to work, do your thing. And like you, okay, I don't know that I've admitted this to anyone. I was naive myself, and I honestly thought that nobody would need my help anymore. And I could actually close my business and spend more time with, I only had a granddaughter at the time. And I was already thinking about what else could I do?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
about being naive, people need me now more than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me, if you look at it from a business perspective, well, that's great because then I can hire more people and that contributes to, the economy and everything. But at the same time, it's sad. I really thought that people wouldn't need me because they realized that there's nothing more important than how you treat people. And that didn't happen. But I was prepared to close the business and do something else. But like I said, that did not happen. And it's not to say, that I had a reality check. It just reminded me that throughout civilization, you go back how many years, there's always been periods of time where human beings are just cruel to each other, but then they come together in the spirit of collaboration, compassion when there's a crisis. It actually reminds me, and I didn't think of it until now. We do a lot of work in maternal child health, labor and delivery, postpartum, mom, baby, NICU. I hear this and see this over and over again, especially in L&D. Those nurses work so well together in a crisis. If mom is having a crisis trying to deliver a baby, there is nobody better than those nurses taking care of that mom.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're not in a crisis, they attack each other. They're
Mm.
mean to each other, they backstab, they gossip, they exclude. And I think it's just a reflection of the human race, of society. We're in a crisis like 9/11. We all came together. But as soon as the crisis is over, we all fall apart and go
Mm-hmm.
back to our just, I don't know, meanness, mean ways. So,
It's
yeah,
hard to see.
it
Yeah.
is hard to see.
Yeah.
However, I look at it this way, and and I were talking about this, before. People say it's just a reflection of society. Well, we're part of society, aren't we? And I'm choosing to not just be okay with the status quo. I want to do something to make society better. And if that's me doing my part, then I'm going to do it. Even though, yeah, when you said fatigue, I'm like, oh, I hear you, brother. Oh, I
Yeah.
hear
And even though you've actually being a Healthy Workforce Institute, in a way, you've been wanting to be put out of business. Like
that.
you've been wanting since the first day. It's like, okay, let's make things so good that no one will ever need me ever again. Like, and you would move on to something else. And in a way, that would be an amazing accomplishment. But we also know, like, based on human nature and the nature of the healthcare space, which we could talk about that for hours, there's
Mhm.
always going to be a need, right? So, you know, hats off to you for continuing to do it and for putting together your faculty and, going out and tackling the hard stuff that so many people don't really want to talk about. I mean, people might want to complain, but talking about actual solutions, I think, takes certain gumption to go out there and say, here's a way to do this better. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk some about what Healthy Workforce Institute's up to and some other things about you. So hang in there with us. We're going to be right back for the second half of this episode, number 532. And we're with the inimitable and wonderful and amazing Dr. Renee Thompson. So we'll be right back. And welcome back to the second half of the episode. We're here again with friend of the pod and my very, very dear friend, the amazing Dr. Renee Thompson. And Renee, prior to the break, we were talking about the fatigue that can happen and what we saw and have not seen and wish we would have seen in the aftermath of the pandemic, and the ways in which our naivete led us to think, oh, maybe we won't have to talk about this stuff anymore. Maybe the love fest of the pandemic would alter the landscape. But, you know, CEO pay keeps going up, nurse pay keeps remaining relatively flat. We could go on with all those things, right? And like you said, nurses will come together to save a life, but then they're backbiting again in the break room 5 minutes after this crisis is over. But be that as it may, the Healthy Workforce Institute's doing its thing. And you've, you know, you've been recognized as a LinkedIn top 5 nurse influencer in 2022 and 2023. You are a certified speaking professional. Um, you were inducted in as a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing in 2022. And I believe, right, in March of 2026, you're going to be inducted as a fellow of the AONL, the American Organization for Nursing Leadership, which I just heard that was happening for you. So, one, how does it feel receiving these sorts of accolades? Like, what's it like for you to have your work recognized? Because you've busted your butt for years.
I have. It's funny. I didn't know that you knew that. I was going to share that because we just received notification this past week that yes, I will be inducted as a fellow with AONL. So I'll add new credentials to my name. It's interesting. Um, Two things. I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to this. A lot of times I feel that level of imposter syndrome where I'm getting these accolades and this attention, and people, know me, they know my work. People I don't know will reach out to me, or if I see them somewhere, they approach me. Oh my gosh, I've been following you for years. I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, and all of those things. It's a little humbling for me because like I have my own podcast, and sometimes when I hop on with my guests, one of the first things they'll say is, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm so intimidated by you." And I want to say, "Me? Like I'm just me. I've done a lot of work in this space. It's nice to be recognized by my peers and by other people who I respect and I admire. However, when you strip away all of my credentials and my education, it's, me as a human being trying to make the world a better place. I'm a
Mhm.
wife, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, sister,
Grandmother.
grandmother. I got my grandbabies. Everybody knows about my grandbabies.
Mhm.
And so I feel very humbled and very honored.
Mm.
And there's also a level of, I'm not worthy, that whole imposter syndrome. But
Yeah.
I did hear this from someone once who said, congratulations, if you suffer from the imposter syndrome, that means you're not an imposter.
Oh, wow.
People who are imposters don't feel that way.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's that aspect of it. But then the other is I am driven by accomplishments. I have my list of goals, things I want to accomplish, and I love crossing things off my list. I get that nice big hit of dopamine, when
Mhm.
I scratch things off my list. And I learned this I have a business coach who I've been working with for the last, 2 years, going into three. And he's helped me to um, create some space for myself when I do have an accomplishment like this being inducted into AONL, to where I don't just cross it off my list and move on to the next thing, that I actually do something to celebrate myself,
Mhm.
that I allow myself some time to sort of sit in that accomplishment space instead of like just crossing it off and going on to the next thing to, I don't know, it's compliment myself. Yes, that this was extremely difficult to be
Mhm.
accepted. Oh my goodness, the amount of documentation and you had to have sponsors. It's not an easy thing.
Mhm.
So it's to pat my own self on the back, sit in that space of I've earned the right to have these credentials and what the credentials stand for, and then do something to celebrate. So there's somebody on my team, Cheryl Fletcher. She really helped me with my application because she's like you, Keith. She's an excellent writer. Me, I'm a good
Mm.
writer, I'm not a great writer. So she really helped me with this. So we're going out to dinner. We're celebrating my favorite restaurant here in Tampa. We have a bottle of my favorite wine,
Mm.
Camus. It's like a $90 bottle of wine, so I don't buy it all that frequently.
Mhm.
And my husband and I talked about what can we do, just he and I to celebrate this accomplishment. So I want to remind listeners out there too, accomplishing, whatever you set out to accomplish. Great. I love having goals and accomplishing them, whether you want to, write something for publication, you want to speak, you want to, get a promotion. Just be thoughtful about when you accomplish that goal to celebrate yourself
Mm.
because if you don't, it's almost like, did it ever really happen? Like, how do you make sure that you give yourself space for that?
Mm. That's well said. Yeah, and whether that's becoming a fellow of the AONL or it's getting your getting your labor and delivery certification, right? Or landing a new job, maybe, or maybe going from full-time to part-time. That's worth celebrating, right? There's so many things. And, I've been joking for years, like, okay, I'm ready for my honorary master's degree now. Like, who wants to pony up and give me one? But still,
Do
like,
it.
yeah, anybody, Joe's University and Grill. I don't care, whoever it is. But really, it's like, no matter what it happens to be, like I recently got a new job. I'm working full time as a hospice nurse now. And I feel like I've landed, I was telling you before we started recording, I've landed in a workplace that is so kind and so free of really free of any shadow that I can as yet identify. And it is such a, like, of course it's hard work. Hospice is hard work, right? Everybody busts their butt every day. I see it. Like, I see the stress. However, we have such like a team orientation. Everyone is so good to each other that I'm like, I'm happy to go to work because I feel like that's worth celebrating. I've found a workplace where I feel like I'm seen as a human being. People treat me kindly. Everyone is kind to each other. It is warm and it's like a loving environment. And I have to say, it kind of blows my mind. So I'm sure some shadows will come around at some point. We were owned by a big corporation. That'll probably happen. But on the human level, like, it's just such a good place, like a good hearted place. Like, that's worth celebrating. Just the fact of being in a place that feels human and humane, don't you think?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it gives me hope because
Yeah.
it reinforces that, so many people reach out to me telling me about the incredibly toxic environments that they work in.
Hmm.
And I always say, please do not cut off your nose to spite your face by staying. Go somewhere
Hmm.
else. It's not like that everywhere.
Yeah. Move
There
on. Yeah.
are good places. Go
Hmm.
find them because you deserve to work in a place where people treat each other with kindness, even though they're part of a big corporation. That shouldn't play any role in how someone treats someone else.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, it does in a lot of places, but that should be it should be the standard that we treat each other with respect and kindness, one human to another human. So it gives me hope, Keith.
Hmm. I,
Okay, that you're
yeah,
capable.
I cycled through two horrible, awful experiences over the past summer looking for the right job. And, it just took a little time. I had to kiss some frogs, um, deciding to go back full time. I needed to be in a place where I could feel like I could at least do it and survive. And so I found a place where I can more than survive. I think I can thrive in this particular environment. So that feels really good. And if anyone out there has that experience, I'm thrilled for you. And like you said, people need to vote with their feet. They really truly do. And, you know, I'm curious with Healthy Workforce Institute, do you have any new initiatives, or is there anything new that you all are looking at right now that feels really timely and kind of the moment?
Yes, very excited. Something that we're working on that will be published and announced in January of 2026. I've been doing a lot of consulting. It's funny, I started my company as a speaker. I get on stage, I speak, bye. Well, people wanted more. So I'm like, okay, I'll do a half day workshop. They wanted more. I'll do a full day. I'll do seminars. I ended up creating an online, academy where I created courses. And then I was asked to do consulting.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't know how to be a consultant. So, just like what nurses do, you learn how. And I reached out to some other colleagues of mine who are consultants, and, you learn. Well, what I did was I put together a system. It's well, now we turned it into a 2-year program. It's not even really a program, but it is an initiative. It's called the Department Culture Change Initiative. So we work usually across the service line for a year, and we implement our system. It's 4 phases. We do assessments, all these good things. And then there's a sustainability year to keep it going. Keith, we have phenomenal outcomes. I mean, people who would not talk to each other in the same room are now collaborating together. And we have numerous data and stories to show that this works. So I guess this was about a year ago. I thought, well, what is my system? It's really a framework. And what I came out with was a healthy workforce framework. So it's 3 pillars. You strengthen the organization, and there are a series of, strategies. You have to equip your leaders, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make sure you're empowering your team members. It can't just be the leaders. And so our whole consulting work that we do is based on this framework. But Keith, I've never really articulated that framework out there in any, I don't know, like way that people are like, oh, the Healthy Workforce Institute has a framework. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
else has a framework. So we put our framework together. We're working behind the scenes right now to get this launched in January. And it'll give people not only the framework, but it's also a toolkit. There are resources, things that they could start doing right away, because to fully address, eradicate bullying and incivility in healthcare, it requires all 3 pillars. You got to strengthen your organization, equip your leaders, and empower your teams. And we put that together. So that's coming out. We're also working on getting a new website. The website that we have right now, we put it together in 2018. So it
Mm-hmm.
needs a little refresh. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be working on that. So there are some things behind the scenes. And one last thing is, my second edition of my book, Enough, Eradicate Bullying and Incivility in Healthcare, came out in October. I have never done this before, Keith, but it is on my goal list for 2026 that I'm going to create the audio version of it.
I was just going to guess it was going to be an audiobook.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
Done that. And
Mm-hmm.
people are like, oh, you could just dump it into AI and it'll record it. I'm like, no, it's going to be
No,
me.
no, no.
It will be me. It'll
We
be
don't
me.
we don't need more AI voices, really, truly.
Oh, so those are the 3 things that are
That's exciting.
I'm very excited about in 2026 that are all happening early in 2026. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
framework, the website that'll be in, Q1, and then I think early Q2. I'll be doing the audio version. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the framework is important because there's things that sometimes we know, right? But they need to be codified, or is
Mhm.
it codified? I think it's codified, because other people don't see it the way we see it, and it's in your head. I know you have all these amazing things in your head, but you have to write it down, and people do like steps, and you know this in the work you do. You have to walk people through processes, and I know you've had all sorts of processes at HWI, but to create a framework and you hang your hat on that framework, and then there's so much you can build from it. So that sounds like a brilliant evolution of the work you're doing. And how many people are on your faculty right now?
So there are five faculty, they're speakers slash consultants, and then
Hmm.
we have six core team members. So yeah, I think there are, well, we just lost one of our team members. One of our program managers just had a baby and decided to stay home and be a full-time mom. And you know what? I was a
Good for
full-time
her.
mom when my kids were little. So I'm like,
Yeah.
go girl, more power to you. But I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So we've had to juggle a little bit. But yeah, we've got an amazing team. Just
That's
like
exciting.
when you were talking about how kind everybody is to each other where you work right now, it reminds me of my own team. When you think about it, you can't work for the Healthy Workforce Institute if you're not a kind, gracious,
Hmm.
supportive individual. We have our core values and we recite them every single time we meet. We give
Hmm.
shout outs to each other on who was a role model for that core value, over the last, week or so. And yeah, I'm really excited going into this next year with the team that I have and doing the great work that we're doing out there.
I'm so excited for you. And we'll have links to Healthy Workforce Institute and also your LinkedIn and other places people can find you in the show notes. And, I always do these little lightning round questions at the end of interviews. And I want to do these with you if you're open to it.
Sure.
Yeah, you into it? Okay. So I wanted to ask you this question. So, what's something you've always wanted to learn, but you've never had the time to explore it? And it could be anything. It could be even like making sourdough. It doesn't matter.
Would love to make sourdough, gluten sourdough.
Me
I
too.
interviewed somebody on my show and that's her thing is, sourdough. Honestly, I've always wanted to learn another language.
Hmm.
And my husband and I went to Italy this past year and we started trying to learn Italian. I just didn't give it the time and the space to be able to do that. And so now we're thinking, do we want to learn Spanish? Because
Hmm.
there are more Spanish, speaking people in this country than
Yeah.
other languages. So yeah, I would love to learn another language. It's always
Hmm.
been something that I wanted to do.
Mm. Yeah, I speak Spanish semi fluently. It's very useful in my work. It's even gotten me jobs. So, yeah, it's useful. So awesome. Okay, I'll hold you to that one.
Yeah.
um, so, what are you doing on your days off these days? How are you spending your time? I know you live near the ocean, but what do you like to do?
Yes, I've been getting better at having time off. I've
Hmm.
been for 14 and a half years, one of these people that work every day, even on vacation, even on holidays. I'll do a little bit of work and I'm like, oh, this is just not healthy for me. So I've been
Hmm.
working on this. So when we're at home, every Sunday, we go to the beach.
Hmm.
Ash and I go, my husband and I go with our neighbors. We go to the beach and we were talking this morning about Christmas Day. So we have everybody over our house Christmas Eve and I make a nice big Italian dinner. And then we don't really do a whole lot on Christmas Day. And then we travel up north to visit, my kids and the grandkids. So we're like, definitely we're going to the beach on Christmas Day, even if it's just a couple of hours walking on the beach. So the beach always. I like to get out of the house. And so Ash and I will take these really long walks. I'll go to the gym. There's a great, I belong to the gym and there's a couple of classes and instructors who are on the weekends that I like to do. And then I love to like build jigsaw puzzles. I've got one that I'm working on right now and I have to finish it so that I can put my Christmas like table centerpiece
Well,
together.
get it done.
I know my husband, you got to finish this. So yeah, reading, building puzzles, spending time with neighbors. It's usually how I spend my time.
Hmm.
And of course, the grandkids.
Grandkids, of course.
We
Goes without
visit.
saying.
Oh my gosh, we try. So they live in Raleigh. We live in Tampa. So we usually try to see them every 6 weeks. So
Hmm.
if I'm not here during a weekend, I'm either speaking somewhere, traveling, or I'm with my grandkids.
That's wonderful. All right. And speaking of time, if you could choose an entirely different career path, what do you think would have suited you?
Hmm. Well, it's different, but maybe it's similar to what I'm doing right now. I would have been some type of social psychologist. Would
Mm-hmm.
have been in that organizational development space. Um, I love social psychology. I love human behavior. I don't know how this is going to come across, but it's real. It's true. I get more excited reading books and articles in that under that umbrella of
Mm-hmm.
human behavior, social psychology than I do some of the nursing articles and books that are out there.
That doesn't surprise me because it's behavior is where you're at. Like that's, you really look at the human behavior is really kind of the core of everything you've done since I met you. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And um, so we have to wrap up, but last question is, if we named you queen of the world tomorrow, which I think would be a really good idea,
Cool.
um, what would be your first act as queen? What would you want to do to make everyone's lives better? Just like waving your magic wand. First thing.
First thing that I would do is require every one of my subjects, okay,
Mm-hmm.
every single person to reach out to someone who they either haven't talked to in a long time or had some type of conflict with at some point and tell them that they love them and mean it.
That's beautiful, Renee. That's so you. It's so you. So, back to the human. Like you're all about the human, right? That's really what it's all about. Well, Renee, if this ends up being my last interview ever for the show, which it may or may not be, I don't know. You're the person I wanted to be with. So thank you for taking this time and thank you for doing such good work in the world. And I am so grateful that you and I ran across each other on Twitter in 2011, so long ago, and that we've maintained this friendship for years, even though we don't see each other very often at all. And I just want you to know how much I love you and respect you. And I think you're one of those forces out there in the nursing healthcare sphere who's like just this like ball of humanity and compassion. You're like just this force. And I just appreciate you so very much.
Oh my goodness. I feel the exact same way about you and I adore and love you too. And I bless the day that I met you. I bless,
Oh,
believe it or not, Twitter right now
well,
because that's where I
that's what
really got
here it
connected
happened.
with you. And it is my favorite thing with all of the work that I've done is meeting amazing human beings like you, Keith. So I'm
Oh,
very humbled and very honored that you would select me as your maybe final, maybe not final episode.
oh, thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you too.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was an amazing conversation with Dr. Renee Thompson. Thank you for listening to this episode. We may be back with more interviews. We may not. I'm not quite sure. So stay tuned, or we may have some special one-off episodes here and there or limited series. We will see what happens when 2026 dawns. The show notes are at nursekeith.com. You can find out about the Healthy Workforce Institute and connect with Dr. Renee Thompson on social media, including on LinkedIn, where she's a top nurse leader and voice. I hope you feel uplifted and empowered from this episode. Take inspired action every day in the interest of your personal and professional satisfaction and development. Please get in touch with me at nursekeith.com. Thank you to Rob Johnston for his production over at 520R Podcasting. And before we say goodbye, I'll leave you with this quote by the musician Robert Fripp. May my living honor my parents. May my living repay the debt of my existence. Be well, dig deep, seek joy, keep in touch. This is Nurse Keith saying adios till next time from beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico. And the inimitable Dr. Renee Thompson saying arrivederci from
Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Thank you, Renee. Thank you to everyone for listening. And we'll catch you somewhere, somehow, on the proverbial flip side.